So far, we've been talking about strategies to survive workplace harassment, which is a good thing. However, during this session, I want to talk a bit about looking to yourself and looking to yourself in a couple of ways. So, what we've covered so far, and it's important, is that bullying and harassment at work is real. There are people, and I know them, and I know I was just having a discussion with the director who was poo-pooing anything to do with bullying, and it is real. And I know for a fact that he's been harassed, but it's just the way he's dealt with it and his perspective on it. He was able to survive it very well, and he's dismissing it. It is real. And the bullies, the people who are doing that harassment, are going to use a myriad of tactics. And all of those tactics are focused on controlling you. And typically they're trying to control you because you are a performer, and it's either they feel a deficit or they feel, hey, I can't control this person because he is so good, and they have the need to do so. So it's more about them, although you're getting the brunt of it. And I'll always say that you're a target, not a victim. You need to document everything. And we talked about that in the previous session. And it's everything. And get into the habit of taking notes in every meeting. And record if you can. As I said before, in New York State, you're allowed to record so long as one person in the conversation knows about that recording. And that way, you won't be questioning your notes. You'll know specifically what happened, and it'll be undeniable. You definitely need to understand the HR policies and procedures, especially when it comes to do with harassment. You need to follow those. If you miss those, you're going to have a problem. It's pretty important to understand that most bullies, most people who are harassing, are managers. CIO magazine stated 81% of the bullies at work are managers. And that kind of makes sense. They're in a position of authority. Not good, because you're dependent upon them for your job. So while you're in this mode, you're going to feel like you're under stress. You're going to start to doubt yourself. Your confidence is going to slip. I'm not even going to say may slip. It's going to slip, because when you're being harassed, you're constantly being questioned. You're constantly being challenged. And if one form of manipulation doesn't work, they switch gears, and you'll be manipulated in another way. So at the end of the day, most people, if not all, when all is said and done, you feel this post-traumatic stress disorder, and you kind of relive it even after it's over. So what I want to talk about is really looking to yourself. And the first way I think you should look to yourself is professionally. And whether you're being harassed or not, this is a good thing to do. So what I do quarterly is a self-assessment myself, not a formal review with my supervisor. I put it on my calendar. I may be doing it during the weekend in my home office. I may be doing it during lunch, but I squirrel away some time. And sometimes I do it very formally, where I list these things out, and other times I do it more generally. But I make sure I've got a good bead on what I'm doing right and where I need to develop. So review your strengths and improvement opportunities. And I don't say weaknesses, because if there is a deficit, if there's something maybe is not your strength, that may be an area that you want to focus on. And that's an opportunity for improvement. You want to do it honestly. Where do you need to develop? And then you come up with a development plan. And sometimes it's going to be something you can do. Maybe it's you need to work with other people to learn a particular skill, or there might be some online training that you can take. It may be, and this is a tough one, you may need to go back to school or go to school and get a degree. That may be something your career needs. I did go back while I was working. I went back and got a second degree, and it wasn't easy. There's a financial component to it, and there's certainly a time component to it, but you have to look at it and say, is that something I need to do? And see if that's going to be a goal of yours. So I do recommend you writing down your development plan after each quarter and see if you're tracking to it quarter by quarter. That'll give you an idea of where you are. One thing I used to do, and I stopped doing this, but when I was younger, I used to go out on a couple of interviews a year and get a job offer. That gave me confidence that I could find another job if I needed one, whether I was going to get laid off, fired, or if I was just in a situation where I wanted to make a change on my own. So that was incredibly empowering, and that sticks with me today. So when you're looking at your self-assessment, look at it from a career perspective and look at it from, can I get another job? And that's where your goals and your development should be. And that'll give you confidence as you're working towards it. So some of the things that you can do are look at professional organizations. For one, as an example, there's the Project Management Institute. They have local chapters, and I belong to it. And I go to the quarterly meetings. I've met people, and if you're feeling a little bit shy, and I'm a bit of an introvert, to be honest. If you're feeling a little bit shy, these organizations are all about meeting people. So you don't have to worry when you go there if you're going to be speaking to people. As soon as you show up, people are going to want to speak to you because they're there to network. They want to get to know you, see if you can help them out. And you may think you have nothing to offer. You do. And it may not be the first meeting you go to, but you will have something to offer people, believe me. And as you're working with them, it's not all just about finding another job and networking. You'll also learn how other people are working their jobs, and you will learn from that. What's the best practice that they're using, and then you can share what you're doing as well, and people can learn from you. So I really recommend, whatever area you're in, finding those professional organizations and getting to know the people there and attending the meetings. You may want to sit in the back the first couple of ones. I guarantee people will seek you out as soon as you start showing up. Another thing you may want to look at are professional coaches. Now, there's a price tag associated with this. By the way, I am not selling anything. I'm not being sponsored. So I've used Beryl Greenberg, so I'm recommending her. She doesn't even know I'm recommending her. She's a very good management consultant. And since I've used her, she's gotten a little bit more focused, and she's focused on executives and marketing. But she is a good one, and I used her when I was going through a rough patch. So she was not only good from a professional development perspective, she gave me strategies and helped me develop strategies on how to deal with people. So I would suggest looking at Beryl, but there's a lot of professional coaches that are out there. You do want to look for one that is recommended, and you want some feedback before you just go and pay money for a professional coach. The other thing I strongly recommend, I've always been involved in a mentoring program, both ways. I've been a mentor and a mentoree. And the best way to find a mentor is look around. Who do you want to be like? Who manages their career, manages their area, their organization? Who just manages the work that they have the way that you want to? It may not be a manager. It depends upon your role. It may be a frontline associate doing something. And the way you can be, if your company doesn't have an official mentoring process or program, you can just go up to that person and say, I admire you. I've admired the way you handle what you do, and I would love to develop a mentoring relationship with you. And I haven't met anybody who wasn't open to that. And having a mentor is the best thing from a career development standpoint. It gives you somebody to bounce things off of. And if you're being harassed, now I wouldn't go and jump right into hey, I'm being bullied at work with a new mentor. But if you have that relationship, if you've developed that relationship, then you could bounce it off of them. Something to think about. So the other side where I think you need to spend time on yourself is more the health side. And it's just as serious as the professional side. The professional side, as you develop, is going to give you confidence in who you are and what you're doing. The health side is going to keep your energy and your health going. So you'll hear this a lot. Only speak positively to yourself. There's plenty of places to go online. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. However, consider yourself your best friend. Would you speak negatively to your best friend, especially if they're going through a hard time and they're being targeted? So practice that. Practice speaking to yourself, whether it's in the car or whatever quiet time you have. When you normally do have those thoughts going around, switch it over, and now you're your own best friend, and speak to yourself that way. You may want to listen to some podcasts, and one I recommend, but there are plenty out there, is Be Positive, Stay Positive. And I've got the link here. I'll put it in the notes. He's great. He's not going to get specific from a career perspective, but he really, from a regular guy perspective, he puts things in a way that just about everybody can understand how to look at life. And that's why I recommend this podcast, but there are others out there. I do recommend you listening to something like that. It just keeps the thought process going. So one thing, when I've had stressful points in my career that I've shied away from, is meditation, and people would talk about it. And I just recently started to meditate, and I do it using a podcast. I don't do it on my own. The one I use is Calm the Bleep Down. I honestly started to download it because I thought it was funny. I thought the title was funny, and it is, but it's a serious meditation podcast, and you don't need to know anything going into it. It's guided. The person who does it, they're about 45 minutes long, I believe. And the biggest thing I can tell you from this is it helps you relax and kind of filters out everything, at least for that moment in time, so that when you shut off that podcast, you feel refreshed and you can refocus. And it does probably lower my blood pressure, and it does make me feel better. So something to think about. So the next thing is really care for yourself physically, and don't take this for granted. If you don't have a good diet and a good exercise regime, start it, especially if you're being targeted and you're feeling that stress, you're feeling under siege. Start it. Don't run to comfort food. It's probably the biggest thing. Make sure your diet is clean and healthy. Get an exercise regimen. Doesn't have to be strenuous. It could just be walk around the block. Start from there, and then you could grow. So if you're eating healthy and you're just at least walking, you're going to start to feel better. Now, sleep is super important. Sleep deprivation will make you crazy. Sleep deprivation will definitely impact your performance at work. If you take it to a degree, sleep deprivation will kill you. So if you're not sleeping and you're spinning and you're waking up at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. just thinking about work, look at the other bullets above. Find ways to clear your mind, relax, make sure you're getting some exercise, and if you need to, talk to your doctor about sleep. Sleep is so important. And the last thing I'll tell you is, while you're working on all these things to survive, on how to combat that bully at work, don't lose yourself. Don't become so embattled that you start doing things that aren't true to yourself. So you need to make sure that you have a good handle on your values and don't slip from them. Don't start doing things that you wouldn't do normally. Be true to yourself. Your friends and family are really what's important, right? Don't lose sight of that, and be good to them. It is so easy, and I've done it. I've snapped at friends and family, probably more so family, when I've been under stress. Be very conscious of that, because they're going to give you your source of love and energy, and you want to keep that. And the one thing I could say is that nothing lasts forever. It doesn't. It seems that way. And my associate Tim, who I've worked with, when he's going through an harassment period, he stayed with his job for a long time while he was being harassed, and he was working for a company that definitely had a culture of harassment. Even that didn't last forever. It will change. Something, either people change at work or you'll change in what you're doing. It will change. You don't have to force it, but there's an end to it. And just, if nothing else, that'll help you breathe in, breathe out, and then move on. So, just to understand, harassment is not your fault. You're not a victim. It's being driven by whoever the bully is. It's for whatever reason they have. That's a deficit with them, not with you. You're just a target, although you're going to feel the impact of it. So you have rights. You have rights to be confident. You have rights to develop. And it sounds crazy, but you have rights to make mistakes. Now, this isn't something you want to talk to the person who's harassing you, because they're going to turn it around, but you should understand it so you're not beating yourself up. Mistakes are the best way to learn. So long as you're accountable and you own those mistakes and you learn from them and you try not to make them again, that is normal. And I don't know anyone who doesn't make mistakes. If someone isn't making mistakes, they're really not trying hard enough. And you have a right to do your job. That's a legal issue right there. That's part of the definition of harassment. If someone is harassing you to the point that you can't do your job, that's the legal definition of harassment. So understand that, and don't blame yourself for any of these things, and don't lose sight of yourself and start to take these things away from you. Don't help your bully out. So I hope this helps. Next session, I do want to talk about HR, being very careful working with HR, and then really next steps. Okay, I've been dealing with my bully surviving, and what am I going to do next? Looking to myself.